Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you guys for joining us today for this special edition of Share Your Light. We have a plethora of coaches joining us today who are here to share their light as well as a parent as we're talking today about cultural diversity in sports. So we're talking about the culture of coaching. I am Rakaya Gibson. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel on YouTube and that you like and share this video with somebody that you feel can benefit from it. I've been a coach in the Houston area for about 10 years, but prior to that, I did coaching privately and was an athlete for pretty much all my life. So this topic hits very close to home for me. I see coaching as an opportunity to really reach kids that might be troubled. And I know there may be times that we miss opportunities to reach kids due to misunderstandings or lapses in communication. So today we are not here to just bring up issues or problems, but we're here to try to troubleshoot and identify areas of growth to where we can do a better job all around in our profession of really reaching kids and may having the opportunity to change lives and really ultimately to change the world one kid at a time. I want to introduce the coaches on the panel today, as well as Jay, who is a parent but has also worked in education. Coach Holmes, we'll start with you with introductions. If you can introduce yourself.
I'm Rickland Holmes. I'm the head football coach, athletic coordinator at John Tyler High School in Tyler, Texas, primarily Black and Hispanic school, normally known for that, with that type of background. So this is a great conversation for us.
Coach Allen.
Hey, I'm Coach Allen. I've been at low socioeconomic status schools and very highly ethnically diverse schools. I've been in education for 14 years and I've been a coach for 14 years. I'm actually transitioning this year to a school that's going to have a lot different demographic and a lot different socioeconomic status than what I'm used to working with. And I'm really, really excited to be able to share my former students' messages with them, their lives and their stories.
Coach Lynn.
Hello, everybody. My name is Carlos Lynn. I am the head football coach at Cedar Hill High School, the Cedar Hill Longhorns here in Cedar Hill, Texas. This will be year 25 for me as an educator, my 12th year as a head football coach. Excited to be on with you guys today and to glean and share all of this wonderful information that we're going to receive.
Excellent. And Jay.
Hi, everybody. Rakaya, thank you for having me here today. I have been an active member and an employee of a high school where there are a very diverse group of students. I've been a very active parent within the Cypress Fairbanks Independent School District. And also that was the same district that my child did graduate from high school from. So working for Cypress Springs High School with my meet children of all different diverse groups. And it's going to be a very interesting and much needed conversation here today.
Right. I want to start with just really what kind of issues or areas for growth have you guys seen with culture in sports? Like if you can think of one thing that you've seen as an area of growth, like for me, I always start with growing up. I grew up in various backgrounds. I grew up for a period of time in the inner city of Chicago. And then I moved to the suburbs to where I went from being amongst mostly Black kids to becoming the only Black family in a school. So I've had to learn how to adapt in different situations. And I know one thing that I know there's a common conception of Black females is that, we are aggressive or that we have an attitude when I'm really just being myself. So sometimes I find myself really toning down my energy to not come off as aggressive or, off-putting in certain situations. So what other conceptions with culture would you guys bring up as a topic of discussion?
Well, I can definitely. Go ahead, Jay.
Okay, I can definitely speak from our standpoint, and I say our in reference to my daughter. She participates in two predominantly Caucasian sports, long distance running and then also swim. The USA Swim organization in itself is just, it does its own consensus of demographics and breakdown. And just in general, it is a predominantly Caucasian sport. So she's kind of broken out of that mold. And it's been very interesting over the last few years to one, watch African American Latin swimmers on the USA swim team representing the USA team in the Olympics. Also to see those same runners come in regional and area and districts and competing and also being able to perform at top level. So it's been really great to watch that happen from this standpoint.
Thank you. Coach Land?
Yes, culture in sports has always been kind of dicey. Just in like you said, it kind of depends on the type of kids that you have, the type of community that you're in, and I always have been a part of coaching teams that were predominantly African American, and the stereotypes that come with those teams. And as a coach, you sometimes as an African American coach, you kind of get stereotyped as, they have all those athletes, those kids aren't disciplined and things of that nature. So those are things that we always try to combat. The coaches are unorganized. They, when they run up into a real football team, they're going to get out coached. Those typical things that I guess you would call stereotypical about our kids and even us as professionals. So we try to do a lot to have to overcome those things by building and having great programs that are not only building young men and young ladies to be great athletes, but to be great men and women and citizens. So that when they finish on the fields and they finish on the course and the track, they can go out and operate in corporate America and operate beyond the stereotypes.
Absolutely.
I was actually going to speak on stereotypes too. Oh, I'm sorry. You want to go ahead, Rakai?
I was going to just say one quick thing. You made me think of a time where my team, we were at a track meet, and for some reason the girls got into an argument with some girls from another team. Someone from my school was caught wind of that, and I never heard the end of it. And so it was always the inside joke to where my kids had anger issues, or were always problem starters, or we're gonna, are they getting into, make sure they don't get in a fight today. And even though it was just a joke, it kind of was stereotypical because they got in one altercation. I'm never going to live down the fact that these girls are aggressive or problem starters, and you don't even know who started the problem, if it was their fault or the other team's fault. Coach Allen?
Yeah, I was going to speak on stereotypes too. You think about the poorer schools as being the ones that break the rules, or that they foul really hard, they play dirty. And then, coming from a Caucasian standpoint, white men can't jump, but then you got Matt Bowman lighting up the track, and so really all athletes train just as hard, no matter what background that they're in or that they come from. All coaches coach just as hard, and all kids play just as hard, no matter who they are. And so I think those stereotypes are something that we just have to break. We have to have an understanding that we're all in this doing the same thing. We're all fighting to be as great as we can be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Coach Holmes?
Just piggybacking on Coach Allen and Coach Lynn about, just getting over the stereotype of saying that, Black coaches don't coach. All they have is athletes, and just making sure that, we continue to do things the right way. Not just to prove that point wrong, but to make sure our young men, our young ladies understand that, we all are put into different situations, and how we handle those situations are going to determine the outcome of our success or failure. So just continue to do things right, making sure we stay the process, stay the course, and make everybody understand that, we're not trying to prove anything wrong. We're just trying to continue to do things right.
Right, right. And we shouldn't feel like we have to prove anything wrong, or that we have to, prove a stereotype wrong, prove our worth to be in a certain arena, all of those things. It kind of takes away from the fun of the process of what we're in. But I want to say there are a lot of great coaches out there. I had a Caucasian high school coach, and I love him to this day. I still call him. I still am in touch with him. And, on our team, it felt like complete family. He treated us all as if we were his favorites. And so this conversation is not to say that just because someone is of one race that they cannot coach another culture, but I know that my coach did a great job of trying to understand all of the cultures of the kids on the team. And I think that's where the opportunity for growth is. Have you guys had any true success stories with some of the kids, especially Coach Allen? Like yesterday when we talked, you talked about the fact that you really had no knowledge of all the different cultures prior to getting to, I guess, college. But when you started working at a Title I school, which was predominantly Black and Hispanic, you got a crash course on culture and many of the issues that, the baggage that kids bring with them to school and how that impacts their behavior and their personality. If you can touch a little bit about that, because I do want to touch a little later on the fact that culture is not just race. So there are going to be some kids who might be poor white kids that are at a predominantly Title I or poor school, and they have some of the same cultural issues that poor Black kids have. But if you can touch a little bit on what you learned through your time working with PALS kids, Coach Allen?
Yeah, so I grew up in South Texas, so very, thick Hispanic culture down there. And so I knew about it, but I kind of, had my blinders on. I was really focused on myself and my own little world that I had created. And so I go to college at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. So I stay in the same area. And then I move up here to Houston and I get my first job at Cy Springs High School in Cypress Fairbanks. You want to talk about being in the middle of it. I mean, it was serious, and it was super, super eye-opening. And I was blessed enough and fortunate enough to be able to teach incredible kids that were willing to be vulnerable and willing to open up and share their stories. And through hearing their stories, it changed my perspective and it changed my life. I've said this for a long time. I will always strive to be the best person I can be because of the kids that I've taught and the stories that I've heard and the people that they are. I think it's easy to use some of those things that can happen to you in life that are unfortunate and terrible as excuses. And these kids use it as motivation to do better and to be better and to set themselves and their future families up for better things. And it's changed my life. I mean, it was phenomenal.
So without giving names, can you give a specific example of how you learn more about culture through those interactions?
Well, I grew up in a middle class town. I always describe myself as upper middle class. And like I said, it really had my blinders on. And so I knew there was problems in the world, but in my opinion, at that time, if it didn't affect me, it didn't really matter all that much. And so, just learning the struggles, talking about having to be parents or have parent type roles at the ages of 13, 14, 15, and taking care of their siblings. Coach, I can't stay after school today because I got to get my little brother off the bus. And making dinner and doing the dishes. And so those kind of things were super eye-opening to me. I had no clue.
Okay. Anybody else want to hop in?
So if
On a specific example. Mm-hmm.
If I can say something just to kind of piggyback off of what Coach Allen was saying, that his focus was on himself before he got to Cy Springs High School. I'll say that from a child's perspective, part of bridging that gap is reaching and really teaching those children that will allow themselves to do that. And a child really has to allow themselves to do that. And a child that is dealing with social economic issues in the home will only expose what makes them the most vulnerable to an adult that they trust and they feel is truly genuine. And I will say that, I know Coach Allen, very personally, I know Coach Gibson very personally, and I can only imagine the other two coaches as well too are the same. But when you can get a student or an athlete or a young adult to truly divulge what is going on in themselves, that it makes them the most vulnerable, that's when they know that you're truly being genuine and that you care. And part of bridging the gap is being a person in a young child's life, if you're in a class, a schoolroom capacity, is really genuinely being there because you care to be there. And I think that's the most important part of that interaction with the child.
Jay, I think we need to, I guess, as also address the fact that you are Latina, but also your daughter has a Black father. So she's had to grow up dealing with the pressure of being a mixed race child, who I know you shared with me, she didn't like staying in the sun because she would get dark and that would make her feel uncomfortable in certain circumstances. If you share a little bit about that. Like when we're given, like I want the people that are watching to feel the specific things. We're talking hypothetically right now. We need to get to the meetup because everybody knows that building relationships is important. But what are the specific things that our kids are dealing with that, talking about building that cultural gap, what happens in these kids' minds that most people might not understand? That's what I want to get to today.
So in the specific community that I live in, Cypress, Texas, the average household income is roughly about $130,000. Bare minimum, average household income. I moved into Cypress, Texas, making a little less than half of that. Now, why did I move into Cypress Springs or Cy-Fair Independent School District? Because I knew that they were a great school that could provide great opportunities for my child, despite the fact of my income. I said, I will make it work. So we moved into this particular school district purposefully. In knowing that, as you stated, my child is biracial. I figured, okay, well, even though we're in a predominantly Caucasian school, I want her to have the best education. And that's what she deserves, so I'm going to work for it. She went to a middle school that was 80% Caucasian taught. That was roughly about 60 to 75% Caucasian in population, student population, with roughly about maybe 30% minorities and so on and so forth. She was surrounded by people who did not look like her. That started to affect her because she dealt with that from the time from that she was in elementary school up until middle school. And it affected her so much to the point that for summer swim, competitive, she no longer wanted to swim because it included outdoor training. And as a darker skinned young woman, she would get darker and darker as she exposed herself to the sun. So much so that when she would go back to school in August, at the beginning of the school year, a lot of her friends would tell her and taunt her about her being so dark. And it really started to affect her. She wanted to straighten her hair. She wanted to no longer participate in outdoor swim. Even though she was an extremely competitive and very great swimmer, she no longer wanted to participate in a sport that she had done for well over 10 years at that point. And so it was very difficult to have to learn to say, you have to appreciate who you are when she's surrounded by people who don't look like her. How can she appreciate who she is when she's surrounded by people who do not mimic or look or somewhat even think like she does? Not to mention the fact that we're dealing with also a gap within financial, when we're talking financially, there's a huge gap. We live 3 miles from the school. In this small 3 miles, we run 3.1 miles in the morning for a workout. Most of us run 3 miles just for fun. This 3 mile distance between one is actually a huge difference. Her friends would come to visit her in our neighborhood, and I remember them making the comment when they got to our house, oh, we didn't know you lived in the hood, because they were 3 miles north of where we lived, and we were considered the hood. Same school district, same school. But that was the mentality that was taught to those young adults. And so it really affected her to the point where she didn't want her friends to come and visit her at the home. She wanted to go and visit them at their homes. She didn't want to interact any longer. So it was very much so an uphill battle trying to teach her to love herself and to continue to compete in something that she loved, despite the fact of the taunting.
Wow. Wow. Coach Holmes, do you have anything like that, any experiences, personal experiences about areas for growth and cultural diversity, cultural interactions?
Well, I know with me personally, growing up a black male, everybody, I've always heard that, black men that don't have, black males that don't have male fathers, in their life, they have a struggle, they have things that they have to go through. Their success rate isn't very high. I have a lot of kids that's with me now. They don't come from two-parent homes. They either stay with their mom, they stay with their grandmother, they stay, somebody else. And the only male figure that they do have is their coach. I think
Right.
about myself. I was 15 years old when I first met my father. So for the first 15 years of my life, the only person I knew was my mother and my grandmother. But I had people around me like my uncles and my coaches. And when I started coaching, I always told myself I wanted my kids to have the same experience in athletics like I did with Coach Allen Wilson. I knew Coach Allen Wilson loved me just like he loved all his football players. He treated all of us like sons, and there was a lot of us. But I always wondered how he did that. What did he do to make sure that not only did he take care of his family, but he took care of his other family, which was us. And I had a great conversation with him, and what he told me was this: is you are who you are, and you're going to be who you're going to be, and people are going to understand that, and they're going to gravitate to that. Either they're going to be real with themselves, or they're going to be fake with themselves. And you can never be the fake one. You always have to be the real one. So when I talk to my kids, I'm straight up with them. I don't hold no punches. Yes, it hurts their feelings, but like I told them, at the end of the day, I'm not worried about your feelings. I'm worried about your success rate. I'm worried about you getting to
Right.
college. I'm worried about you being a great dad. I'm worried about you being a great mother. You know, and sometimes, you know, it goes back to what we said earlier. What I told you earlier, my motto is a lot of people want to be taught, but they don't want to be coached. It's hard to be coached. Anybody can teach you. Anybody can open up a book and read and tell you what the information is in there and walk away. But who's going to sit there and make sure that you understand the information in there? Who's going to make sure that you dilate and you put everything together, that information that's in there? That's a coach. I'm coaching.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you what to do. And all parents are coaches to me, you know,
Right.
because you always doing things to your kids that they don't want you to do, but it's good for them. It's going to put them in a place to be better. And that's coaching. That's not teaching. That's coaching. And, a
Right.
lot of people, they shy away from coaching. And those are the people who can't be successful. But when you say you shy away from it and you can't be successful, yeah, you can be. It's going to be harder than what you want it to be because you can't accept coaching and you don't want nobody to tell you what to do. You want somebody to suggest to you what to do so that you feel like you making your own decision. But at the end of the day, we all making our own decision, whether we want to be coached or we want to be taught, whether we want to be success or we want to be a failure, whether we want to be the person that somebody looks up to, or we want to be the person somebody looks down to. So, when I tell people about my story, I'm not supposed to be in the position I'm in right now, statistically. I'm supposed to be in and out of jail. I'm supposed to have 3, 4, 5 baby mamas, ton of kids. That's how people in society look at males that don't have father figures. But we all have father figures. We just got to be willing to accept them, especially if you play athletics. Your coach should be that guy. And I tell my parents, the lady parents that I have, that I coach their sons, I'm not trying to be their dad. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be their dad. I have my own kid to be their dad. But what I am going to do is I'm going to be a person that they can depend on. I'm going to be the person that they can always come to and say, hey, this is what's going on. Let me know what I need to do. And I'm going to be your support. I'm not going to ever go against what you teach your son at home. I'm going to support what you teach your son at home. And if I feel like it's something that they need to be doing differently, I'm going to make that suggestion to you. So I'm going to help you, help me, help your son. So at the end of the day, it's not about who you are and what you do. It's about how you do it. How do you carry yourself? How do you deal with these things? It's like everything that's going on in the world right now with the race stuff. I've been talking to my kids about this stuff. So parents calling me now, I was like, Coach, I appreciate you always talking to our sons about this because we've been having this conversation in our household and they've been repeating verbatim stuff that you done said in meetings, stuff that you done said, after a workout. and things of that nature. But you know, I've been trying to get them prepared for life because I want them to
Right.
be a great dad. I want them to be a great husband. I want them to be the great person that I know that they can be. Because I look past that structure that most people look at. I'm trying to look inside of them, like my coaches did me.
Right. What are some of the things that have ever come up as an issue that a kid who comes from a single parent household may need a little bit of extra information about or a little extra coaching on, like whether it be tying a tie or understanding how to treat a female, any of those conversations that you've ever had to have, Coach Holmes?
Oh, most definitely. You know, kids not understanding why their dad not there. You know, now all of
I
a
think
sudden,
that's a personal thing
yeah,
that feeling
that's a personal
unloved.
thing for them. And you know, why is it that now that I'm on varsity and I got 25 scholarship offers, now my dad is starting to call, and I got to tell him all
Mm,
the time, you can't worry about why your dad is calling. You have to embrace that he is calling. Now, do you still want that relationship or you don't want the relationship? That's totally up to you. But take advantage of the opportunity that's presented to you and make the best of it. Yes, it's taken him this long to contact you and be in your life, but you've always wanted him in your life, right? Well, yeah, they said, well, yeah. I said, so he's there. So what are you going to do now? Are you going to hold that grudge and miss out on this opportunity? Or are you going to open your heart, open your arms, accept it, and make the best of it? Because you're only going to probably have one shot. You know what I'm saying? And yes, it is wrong that because you're a 4 or 5 star athlete, he's starting to call you now. Yeah, that's wrong. I get that. But at the end of the day, you better understand what happened, how it's happening now, and how you're gonna move past it. And that's what you gotta understand. And you can't continue to hold grudges. You know, I have a lot of kids like that. They deal with their dads like that. And me being who I am, because I ain't always been Coach Home. I used to be Rickland a long time ago. I don't mind calling dads and having that conversation with them and telling them, say, man, listen, I just talked to your son. He's in a vulnerable place right now. If you are just trying to use your son because you saw him on Twitter and you saw him at a Rivals camp and all this great stuff, go the other way. Go back to where you came from. But if you legit about being around your son and trying to help raise him from this point on, then do it and do it 100%. Because I'm telling you, if you're not going to do it, go back to where you came from.
right.
And I've had that with 5 dads now. I never told the kids that. I never told my kids. I never told my kids I called their dad and had that conversation with them. Because 4 of the dads I grew up with. So I know
Hmm.
I can have that conversation with. And the other dad, you know, like I said, I just reached out to him, you know, and let him know because this is my child. This is my son.
Mm.
How would you feel if you was a divorcee or something, and then all of a sudden your significant other came back into the life of your son? A lot of women are reluctant. They don't want that man around them because you left us, but now you're trying to come back. Don't hold
Yeah,
that. Use that. You know,
yeah.
understand that and move past it. Either you're gonna move it past with them or you're gonna move past without them. Either way, you got to move past it.
That's a good point you're bringing up, though, Coach, because a lot of people look at like our athletes, they're big, they're strong, they, celebrate on the field, they look happy on the outside, but a lot of them are still hurting on the inside and have self-esteem issues that even though they seem confident, they have issues on the inside of not being loved, of abandonment, and people see them as having a chip on their shoulder or misunderstand them because of that, but they're still hurting on the inside because daddy abandoned us, or mommy and daddy. I know several kids who don't live with either of their parents, who both
Hmm.
of their parents left them with granny, or who left them to live with someone else. And those are some of the issues that our kids are dealing with that, the average teacher or the average coach that doesn't have that personal relationship with them will not know that's the reason that they don't look you in the eyes, or they do not know that's the reason that they don't like, you to touch them. They shrug when you touch them. Maybe they've been beat. There's all kind of other issues that come into play that go into coaching than just knowing that this kid can run fast and jump high.
Hmm. I tell my kids all the time, y'all look strong, but a lot of y'all are weak. and you show it sometime, and you show it at the wrong time, and people will take advantage of it. So if you're gonna be strong, be strong. Don't be weak. And there's nothing wrong with letting somebody know that you're hurting, because when you're hurting, you can be repaired, and it makes you stronger. But if you're hurting and you keep trying to hide it, you keep trying to suppress it, you think it's making you stronger, but it's just making you weaker, because now it's making you more susceptible to something that's going to hurt you later on down the line, and it may destroy you.
Right, right. Coach Lynn?
You know, Coach Allen said something about when he got to that place of learning the struggle of his student. You know, I was at the place of knowing the struggle. I was raised by my grandparents. I slept with my grandfather until I was 18 years old. You know, Coach Holmes said he met his dad at 15. You know, I'm still looking for mine. Never knew the man. So understanding that that these kids have different dynamics and they have different issues, and knowing my own. Growing up at Wilmer Hutchins High School, 99.9% black, and then going on to East University in Ada, Oklahoma, 99.9% white. When I walk in my classroom, I'm the only dot sitting in the middle, right there, the only person of color in my class. And the good Lord in his infinite wisdom knew that I needed that diversity, knew that I needed all of those different tools and those different struggles, because for a time like this that we're in now, I can relate to that, and understanding that these young ladies and these young men, they're different. I have young coaches on my staff, and they get fed up with kids. And I often remind them, I said, do you remember how you were when you were 14 years old? And it's like that light bulb comes on. You right, coach. Understanding the mindset of a teenage boy in America. It's crazy. Their minds aren't mature, and that's why they have us. They have us to steer them and guide them into that maturity. And I was just saying here this week, I seen a couple of guys in our strength and conditioning camp, and I just shake my head. And I tell a coach, I said, "Look at so and so, man. Do you remember when he was a freshman here? We wouldn't have gave 2 plug nickels for him, and now." He gonna help this football team. Now he's maturing. He's saying yes sir, no sir. He's here on time. He's being responsible. He's calling when he's not gonna be here or when he's gonna be late. He's communicating. So you're beginning to start to see these young men coming into their own, but they never start in that place. And sometimes, as educators, we just have to remember that it is a building process. And in high school, it's a short window. It's a 4-year span where they see every change in their life, from their bodies, from their minds, from their just every change that we can imagine is happening between that 14 to 18-year-old stage in their lives. So understanding that, and then too, on a personal level, my son, I have a son 16 years old on Tuesday, and he's had to overcome a lot, and he's a 2-time cancer survivor. He's a young man that has has blew me away with the strength that he has endured out of the radiation, all the chemo, and all the surgeries, and all of the pokes and the pricks that he's had to get over the years. And he reminds me of those students that have those health issues and those things that are going on that we don't know anything about, but they're surviving. and they're trying to blend in, and they're trying to do what's right. They're trying to be a part of our society and our communities and our teams and our organizations without judgment, without people trying to pacify them and coddle them. They're trying to make it on their own. And just as the adults in the room, we have to consider all of those factors as we're leading and guiding our young men and our young ladies.
Wow. Excellent points, Coach Lynn. You got me thinking of a few things when you said, if that kid that learned how not to come late anymore. I know that's been a huge issue, and everybody jokes about CP time, colored people time. And it is really a thing because it's culturally ingrained. If the parents are always rushing and not getting places on time, then now you have the kids who grew up like that, who grew up with that rush all the time. It's always a rush, and being okay being late somewhere. Mama don't get to work on time, so you fussing at me for coming to practice on time. And like I had to catch myself as a coach. There's been a few times that, the bus will have to wait on this one kid in the morning because they late, and I'm wanting to just leave them or kick them off. But I have to remind myself that this has been ingrained in them generationally, and this is something that we have to help them to work their way through in that 4 years that you described. Anybody else have the issue with lateness being an issue with, their kids of color?
Well, I tell you what, our kids, they can. I'll start it, but they will finish it. And I learned it from my old athletic director, O.J. Kemp. Early is on time. On time is late, and late is unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
Once I start that, once I say early is on time, they were like, they know it. But your urgency, your time, and how you operate in time kind of displays your level of interest. If it's urgent to you, you're gonna be on time. If it's important to you, you're gonna be on time. I guarantee you, if they had a PS4 tournament, or if they had something that they really want to do, they mama's supposed to get them new grades. Those things become urgent, and they want it on time then. But
Right.
we have to teach them the value of time, and as a commodity and a resource that you can't get back. You can't get time back.
Right. And that takes to reinforce them. Right. And that comes with the reinforcement or the consequences as well, right, Coach? How do you teach them? How do you work them through that process with a rule system in place, right? Coach Lynn?
Absolutely. And
right.
Yes, ma'am. And consequences. And and some people don't. I'm big. My head coach is Robert Woods. He's a Hall of Fame head coach, just like Alan Wilson is. And he will be in that when that bell ring, he gonna say 2 minutes, 1 minute and 45, 1 minute and 30.
And he's standing there with a board in his hand.
He right all the way down to 15 seconds. And he let if you behind me, you late, and you already know what the consequences are. So they're building that and building that time and letting them hear that voice. I'm holding you accountable for your time. I'm holding you accountable. I got, when that bell ring, I got 50 minutes, just like everybody else in the state of Texas. We got to do our work. We got to get the most out of our 50 minutes, more than anybody else in our district. So that time is of the essence, and you definitely have to teach that and hold them accountable to it.
And that you just said, that reminded me of something like with our kids. You start doing that count. Well, you do it at practice, and guys start moving around a little bit quicker. Well, at the football games, the kids want to hang out and they want to talk to their family, and we trying to get on the bus as coaches because we gotta go. We finna start this process of work all over again. So I know I'm gonna give them a little time. Go take a couple of pictures with the people, depending on how the game really went. We won, I give them a little extra time. We lost, and it's gonna get cut short. But you sit around and I just remember one parent coming to me the next week, and she was saying, I can't believe my son took off like that. I said, what are you talking about? She said, we was in mid-conversation, and you said 30 seconds, and you start saying 29.
Okay, hopefully he'll pop back on. One other thing you said, oh, there he is. Okay.
You start counting, and as soon as you start counting down, my son vanished because he knew what was coming next. Like you had to be where you were supposed to be before he got to 0.
Mm. Wow, we lost you for a minute there, Coach Holmes. But yeah, that time, that really is. I know with me, I started, like you said, you don't get the time back. So I started taking away time from them rather than even have to enforce a huge punishment. The punishment was now you don't get to practice. Don't come to my practice late and think that you're going to get to practice with the team. I'm not starting you late. So now you don't get to practice. And when I take away practice, you know that you possibly are losing your opportunity to compete. And so that clicks it for them as well. Same thing with rest and recovery for track. Like people who want to take too long to get back on the line, I'm like, nope. If you miss the time for the next thing, your practice is over. You can go home. You changed the workout. So time is something that is not changeable. Like it is what it is. If I say 3 minutes, it's 3 minutes. If I say 8 o'clock, it's 8 o'clock. But through the process of coaching, we teach them to respect time. I think that's something, that is really important. You said one other thing, Coach, when you said you went from a 99% Black neighborhood to a 99% Caucasian university. I was in a similar situation. Like at Iowa, it's 3% Black. So I went from the inner city and, the hood to going to Iowa. And one thing that stood out to me that I always remember is growing up in Chicago, we're taught certain ways to walk and to carry ourselves so people know not to try anything with you. So I'm going to walk with a certain kind of confidence so that, somebody that's a whiner or something on the corner knows not to try to snatch me, right? And so we don't make a lot of eye contact either. You don't look people in their eyes, in the hood. It's seen as an act of aggression. But then when I went to Iowa, people are like, why aren't you? They don't trust you when you're not looking them in the eyes. So that's something that I had to learn was to speak to people and look at them because we didn't speak to people on the street in Chicago. And when I went to Iowa, it was seen as an act of disrespect not to speak to people. And the same here in Texas, people speak and make eye contact. And if I had made the transition straight from Chicago to Texas, I wouldn't, I would have been seen as a person that was untrustworthy or disrespectful.
Wow. That's culture.
Hey, Rakaya. Rakaya, it's funny
Yeah.
that you say that. So I'm originally born in San Antonio, Texas, the south side of San Antonio. San Antonio, if you've ever been there, the south side is predominantly 90 some odd % Latinos. The east side and the west side of San Antonio are a mix of Black and Latinos. And the north side of San Antonio, which is generally where everybody goes to visit, that's the visit center, is predominantly Caucasian. That's where you have your Fiesta Texas and your SeaWorlds and all the shopping centers. So the north side for our people was like where we went as a field trip. That's where we wanted to go if we wanted to go somewhere nice, because our hood wasn't necessarily nice. So growing up in a predominantly Latin community and not having much exposure to white people, and the white people that we did have exposure to, just speaking for my family in particular, it was police involvement. Either my dad was getting hauled away in handcuffs, my mother was getting hauled away in handcuffs. I am literally the only person in my entire family that probably hasn't sat in somebody's jail cell. So I made it. But at that point, when I got to high school, it was an experience because I had my first white coach. And to this day, Coach Leandra Valdez, she's married to a police officer. And so to me, that was a very scary involvement for me to put myself into because my dad had taught me after many encounters with police officers to not trust police officers. My dad and my mother had taught me that, you limit your Spanish speaking from elementary school. You limit your Spanish speaking in the school because you don't want to be labeled as an English second language speaking student, because then that would cause your learning ability to be slowed down because you can be placed in a second level class. So having all of these understandings as a Latino in my community was very confusing when now I'm being coached by a Caucasian coach who's married to a police officer. But when I tell you that woman broke every stronghold that I ever had about what a white person had been taught to me to be, that was such an eye-opening experience because she pulled us from the hood, from the ghetto where we lived, and introduced me to what it was like to live in the North Side. She brought us to our homes and we did sleepovers and we did team events and it was such an exposure to something that I had never seen before. A 2-story house, a pantry. I didn't know what a pantry was. Like I was like, so y'all just have a storage room for like extra food? Like we barely have food to put in our refrigerator. You have a whole closet for food? I mean, it was something that minute to some people, but for us, it was eye-opening. And for her to teach us on a daily basis that you are able and capable of having not only these monetary things, these physical things, but mentally you're able to do a lot more than what you can. To this day, I still have communication with her via social media, but she was such a pivotal moment in me breaking the strongholds of what a white person had been always taught to me. And that was such an experience for me as a Latina. And it brought me into where I'm at now as a single parent, teaching my daughter who's of mixed race, like, no, white people are not all this. White people don't always do this. This is not a white and black or a white and brown thing. This is a mental thing. This is what is taught to people. So I'm going to teach you different because I can't teach anybody else outside of this house. So I can focus on what's here, but I can't focus on out there. And that really started from having that, Caucasian coach, Coach Valdez in my life in high school. And I would say that was by far one of the most pivotal moments. Not at one point did she ever know that I was homeless, that I was hungry, that I literally didn't have a place to lay my head at night, that I slept on floors many nights. She never knew any of those things. Did she ask me any of those questions? No. Did she understand? I think she did. But she knew how to be there for me without being intrusive. And that was by far probably one of the most pivotal things she could have done.
Wow. Wow. And when you bring up, the homelessness, or the constant evictions, that's another issue that some of our kids might have, the instability, because we're still dealing with generational problems with trying to get on our feet. There were no reparations given after slavery ended. The civil rights movement, yes, we got integration, but there was still no reparations given to families to get them on their feet. So a lot of families still had to struggle, and it's been a constant battle. So, a lot of jokes might be made because someone's poor, or might be on the, dependent on the system for assistance, but they're still struggling to get on their feet, and an understanding and an empathy. And I was talking to a coach yesterday, and he said, he is a white coach, and he said, well, really, it's about humanity, and we just got to care. He said, it's really not that difficult. We just got to care about people and practice the, do unto others as you want them to do unto you. Or even if we think about the Bible verse, when it talks about the least of these, when did I walk past you and not feed you, Lord? But you walked past the least of thee and you didn't feed them. So if you did it to them, then you did it to me. And that's the way that we got to look at these kids and all the families and every human being that we interact with. Would we do that to God? Would we do that to Jesus? Would we do that to his prophets? Because if we would, then okay, carry on. But if you would act differently in the sight of God, then understand that you're always in his sight. And we're always supposed to be doing his work, right? So love you one another. It's really as simple as that. And if we can all say that we're doing that, then maybe this problem wouldn't be what it is. But there are fears that exist of the police. There are fears that exist of other races because of the interactions that have been had. I have student after student who said that, people are afraid of them. They walk down the street and people cross the street or lock their doors when they're approaching, and they're not doing anything. They're not wearing anything, off-putting, but that's just the experience that they've had. And then additionally, kids who are just afraid of the police. Coach Holmes, I know you said you've had conversations with your teams about interactions and all of what's going on now. Have you seen that they've had a fear of interacting with the police prior to what's happening now?
I'm not going to say it's a fear. I think it's more of I'm not going to say it's a fear. I'm not going to say they fear them. I'm going to say that they are cautious around them, because fear keeps you from doing certain things. Cautious slows you down from doing certain things. Mm-hmm. So, their interest in how they react to them has always been a question of all my kids. What do we do? How do we handle that? Why do they do that? Why did they do this when we done that? You know, all these questions come about from your kids, and you know, you have to always tell them, you know, everybody's not raised the same, but at the same time, we all have a great understanding of ourselves. And when
Mm-hmm.
you understand who you are, it really doesn't matter too much about everybody else. You know, I I tell people this. You know, I was having a conversation about everything that was going on. You know, with the killings and all this and stuff like that. And I said, Will Smith put it best. You know, racism just started. It's just getting filmed. You know, nothing's changed. This has always been around, and it's gonna always be around. You know, yeah, we're gonna have all this great stuff that's gonna happen. Everybody gonna make all these great. I call them New Year's resolutions. Everybody's gonna make those, and at the end of the day, you're gonna revert back to who you are. Now, if you're
Mm.
that person that's always stuck to doing things right, you're gonna be that person. But if you're that person that get excited, and then once that excitement leaves, and you revert back to who you are, then that's what it is. It's kind of like in coaching. Everybody work hard when you win it. Lose 3 games in a row and see how hard they work.
Mm. Wow. So, how do you feel, Coach Lynn? Do you feel like anything is really going to change? Like Coach Holmes said, you know, it's going to be what it's always been.
I'm the hopeful optimist. I live on a positive plane. I have to believe that, I believe in what I teach. I believe in not only do I believe it, I've seen that it works. Yeah, I've seen proof of young men turning it around. Uh, we teach something, and Coach Holmes struck a nerve. We teach something, and most programs do, called core values, and those
Right.
core values, it speaks right and directly to the core, and the core of our being is our heart, and racism is a heart issue. And if you don't have a heart transplant, you will never overcome racism.
Mhm.
It is what it is. So as we strive to make these differences, and as we strive to make these changes, we have to deal with the core issues. And that's why we teach our guys, and we teach our team, and even in my family, we have core values. And when you live by these core values, you don't have to step light for nobody. When you live in the truth of your core values, you can be you, because right is on your side. So I don't have to flinch when I see someone. I don't have to go the other way when I see someone. I'm operating on what's right. Now, depending on their core values, that's the caveat. Depending on their core values, you never know. But you can't control what you can't control. You control you. And once you take care of your insides, and you know you're operating with a value system that's right and true. Mine is my faith. I believe God is going to work it out. I believe that no matter what happens, no matter what people say, I don't care who said, at some point God going to get the glory out of it. So, and it may be now, it may be later. I may see it, I may not see it, but at the same time, I just know, and I just believe that things are going to work out. It's got to turn. It's got to turn, because right is right. And when you right, you operate in a spirit that's right and true. So that's how I look at it. It goes down to the core of who you are.
Mhm.
Right.
And I
Now let
think
me ask you, wait. Let me ask you too, real quick, since you're interacting with the athletes currently, like you have started strength and conditioning this week. And so this is right after coming on the heels of all of the protests and the riots. How is the energy amongst the young men that you're working with? What questions have they had for you, and what conversations have you all had about this, and about how that, how the core values fit into that?
Absolutely. What the thing that I've done, I've tried to take it another step, a step further. Our kids, I'm like Coach Holmes, we talk about stuff all of the time. So this is, we constantly pour into our kids. You know, our white coaches, our black coaches, we're always trying to pour good things into our kids. What I wanted to do when we came back was allow them to tune their ear in to people that they don't hear from. So on Monday, we had our superintendent of schools come and just speak his heart on social justice issues. On Tuesday, we had our chief of police come speak his heart on social justice issues. On Wednesday, we had the mayor to come in and speak his heart. On yesterday, we had our offensive coordinator. He's a white guy, Coach Kyle Morales. Only place he's ever coached is Cedar Hill, Texas. And, you know, he loved these kids, had him to speak his heart. And today we had our FCA character coach, Pastor Chris Wesley, come and speak and pour into our kids. So next week we're gonna probably have a whole different 5. So we want to pour in. We want them to know that it's bigger than Cedar Hill football. It's big. It's bigger than what we imagine or what we believe. There's a lot of people out here that love you. There's a lot of people out here that has your best interest at heart. There's a lot of people out here that has some sound advice and wisdom to give you. And that's the vein that we tried to work out this week.
Wow, Coach. Wow, amazing. Now, you set aside time, and that's how I've always been at a coach. Like you said, I know you've always done that. Set aside extra time and not just worry about the X's and O's or the plays or the physical part of the sport, but dealing with the emotional and the mental part of the sport as well. And a lot of times we, as people, not even just as coaches, we don't make time for that extra part. And what you just described is not a 5-minute conversation on what's been going on. You just gave 5 days where it sounds like you gave probably 20 or more. How many minutes did it take each day for those talks?
I talked to them, and when they were done, they were done. You know, I mean, I wanted them to feel like they had what they needed to get their message across.
But at minimum, there was probably about a 30-minute commitment that your team had.
You know, some people they were considerate of our time. You know, we know we don't kids, you know, and parents have to come pick them up and things that we tried to keep it, you know, at a minimum time to where at least they can get their point across. But man, you got the floor, you know, so take it for what it was, because you may not get this audience again.
So was it after practice, at the beginning of practice? How did you incorporate it?
It was actually we have a midstream where because we have 2 sessions. So one group was finishing a session, the other group was just coming in to start the whole team session. So when that group was coming in, and we had a real big audience for those people to talk to.
Perfect. That's a great model, you know, and I really hope that other schools are doing things that encourage the conversation, because I think one of you mentioned before, like when Coach Holmes, when you have something that you're dealing with and you ignore it, it creates more of a weakness. But when we attack that thing that's the problem, then the problem no longer has control over us or over our hearts. And when you say that racism is a heart issue, that is absolutely true. And I think that our opportunity as coaches, people who are adult, like if somebody's a racist, they're 50, 60 years old, we're not going to make that much of a change in them. But these young kids, this is our opportunity to actually have an impact on them, because they're seeing the interaction between multicultural races. And this is the time, with what we model for them and what we instill as our core values on the team, that's going to carry forward with them in life. Coach Holmes, anything you want to add?
No, he hit it on the head.
Okay. Did you do anything specific with your team this week?
No, what we've done, you know, we had a huge Zoom meeting before we started with all our kids, and we talked about, you know, we let everybody get it off their heart, get all their questions out. You know, we had a great conversation, and you know, we just kind of hashed out everything. And you know, the main thing that just kept coming up is the excitement of Monday, because we had it on a Saturday, and you know, my kids being there, it's like the world stopped when they was working out. They didn't worry about what happened. They didn't worry about what's gonna happen. Only thing they was worried about was, hey, what are we gonna do today as a group to get better? Because I trust you, you trust me, I believe in you, you believe in me, and no matter who you are and where you came from, it doesn't matter because we here at John Tyler High School and we all lines. So,
What is the diversity like on your team?
well,
Like
right
not the
now,
athletes, not the athletes, but the coaching staff.
I have a pretty good mixture right now. You know, I have black coaches, Hispanic coaches, white coaches. You know, we have a very diverse coaching staff, and it has to do with the relationships that I built with different coaches. When I interview coaches, I'm not worried about what color you are. I'm worried about what you know. I'm worried about what you bring to the table. I'm worried about how you gonna handle my kids. Because I'm entrusting you with somebody else's life. And at the end of
Mm-hmm.
the day, it doesn't really matter, what color your skin is and what color it turns when you go to the sun. What's inside of you? Like Coach Lynn said about your heart. You know, what what do you believe in most about yourself to bring to the table for a child? Because that's what they are, the kids, the children. And the scripture that you quoted about uh, uh, earlier, that goes back to understanding your purpose, your drive, your why. Every year we got a why and we put it in a box. And I remind them what their whys are because everybody has a different why. And that why is what makes you who you are on the inside and it comes out on the outside.
Right. Right. And those whys will help. That's really like one of the best things as a coach is to understand each kid's individual why. It allows us to bridge that gap and to connect with that kid and understand. I've had kids even, open up about things, serious things like stuff what Jay has shared through sharing what their why is. And it helps me as a coach understand how to really coach that kid and get through to them because every kid can't be coached the same and everybody's motivation is not the same, like you said. But yeah, it comes back to the heart with the coaching staff. I think that if we, make sure that everybody that, like, I see this is our treasure. This is our commodity, the kids. So we can't put it in the hands of somebody who has a bad heart. We have to make sure that everybody that has an opportunity to mold these kids has a good heart because you see some of the things that come out like over the years, like a few years ago, there was the wrestling team that had the dummy and they hung them. They dressed up like the KKK and they hung them. And that was on social media. And it's like, what program are you in where this is okay? Because the kids in your program would know not to post that on social media, even if they had the thought to do it, because they know that you would not allow it. So as coaches, there has to be a certain level of kids knowing what is a part of this culture and what's allowed in this culture and what's not allowed in this culture and how are we forming their hearts. Because as they, like you said, between the ages of 14 and 18, they're still moldable. Whatever's happening at home, we don't have control over that. But I still have hope, like you, Coach Lynn, we still have hope that we can have our impact on those kids and help shape them into the citizens that they can be. Because as coaches, it's not about wins and losses. A coach is a person who helps someone get from where they are to where they can and should be. That's what our job is. Yeah. Well, does anybody have any questions that's watching? We can answer a few questions if you want to put a few questions in the comments. And make sure that you subscribe in the meantime to the channel. And if we don't have any questions at this time, is there anything that any of you guys would like to say as we close out? This has been a really great conversation. Go ahead.
I would definitely like to say something. So from a parent's perspective, I have come across quite a few coaches in my daughter's 20 years of life, two of which are actually on this panel right now. But I can only imagine having been a spectator as a parent of watching coaches perform the duties that you perform. And when I tell you that we have encountered great coaches, a good handful of great coaches in our experience, and I want to say that from a parent's perspective, I see how much work it takes to do what you guys do. on a coaching level, to love the way that you guys love, to care the way that you care, and to be as genuinely sincere in everything that you teach these kids. And so from a parent's perspective, I want to say thank you for everything that you do, because I know it's not just a 9 to 5. I know it's not just a 7 to 3. I've known Coach Gibson and Coach Allen to be out well into the wee hours of the night, taking kids back home, picking up things for the next day for a meet, and just going above and beyond, taking food to students, picking kids up for school in the morning. So I will say that from a parent's perspective, I thank you guys for going above and beyond and for even caring to be on this chat today.
I have one thing, Rakai, if I can talk. I think my wife told me a quote the other day, going back to "Is change possible?" And she said, that she read this and it hit home. If you study history, the one thing that is very apparent is that change is possible. And I think it has to change. One thing that's been really heavy on my heart, one thing I'm really mad about myself at, and I'm disappointed in the education system, is that I felt like this was a controversial topic. And I felt like I couldn't speak on it on social media because it was controversial. And this isn't controversial. This is right and wrong. This is human rights. And I think through experience, the experience that I was blessed with and getting to know the students that I got to know, I think with just opening your eyes and opening your heart to new perspectives and new ideas, that this can and will change. It has to. It has to.
Thank you.
Coach Allen, I hear what you're saying, and although it might be a controversial issue, and like I've said this time and time again, we as African Americans, we can't dig ourselves out of this hole by ourselves. We need our white brothers and sisters to stand and to be bold. And even in this time of things being controversial, and be the controversy. Don't worry about it, especially when where your heart is. So I want to admonish you to stay in the fight, and you're going to be one of our biggest sources, the biggest reasons to why we get out of the situation that we're in.
I've taught too many phenomenal kids to be silent anymore, and that's where I am that's where I'm at in my life. I can't do it.
Yeah, you're right. This has been a controversial topic, and even when I posted today, I posted asking kids like if they experienced any times that they felt misunderstood. This is not about placing blame, but it's about opening conversation so that we can deal with it and help make it a better situation for everybody moving forward. And I know there's other people who have stories like what Jay has described that, has not felt that there was a safe place to talk about it. This is not a place of animosity. This is a place that we can develop strategies to make sports a better place for everyone. Like you said, Coach Holmes, your kids were looking forward to getting back to practice because of quarantine and then all of the riots and the protests, all of that is stressful. And for our kids, sports has always been a stress relief for them. I know it as a parent. I know it as an athlete. It was my go-to when I was stressed out. Even as a coach, there have been times that I've been going through things in my adult life that when I go to the track, my problems do not exist during those 2 hours that I'm out at the track. So it is a safe place for like our country. And I know someone even mentioned before, like, when 9/11 happened, a lot of people went to sports afterwards, for that, that relief, that stress relief. And right now, we really don't have anything to take our attention to distract us. And, right now, those kids are finally getting back to something that gives them a sense of normalcy. And so that is extremely important for them. But these conversations are necessary. So don't feel bad, for us having them. Let's participate in them so that we can do better. We can do better. And I think that even there's a lot of great coaches out there doing a great job, phenomenal job. But even me as a coach, I'm always striving to do better. There's always something more that I can do to improve how I interact and relate to the kids that I'm working with. We have a question here. It says, what are some strategies you've used to attract kids that might be on the fence or hesitant about participating in your particular sport?
For us,
come give it a try.
That's real. That's real. What I try to do is my coaches have to have juice, man. You can't be in a juiceless coaching staff. You have to have energy. You have to have motivation. You got to want to be there every day. You got to love kids. We got to high five. We can't do all that right now because of social distancing. But a virtual high five, get you a virtual hug. You have to care for kids. Kids want to know that you care. And when they know that you care, man, they probably can't catch a cold, butt naked in the winter, but they still want to be a part of the team. They might can't help you a bit, but when you show them that you care, because it's bigger than that. It's bigger than scoring touchdowns. It's bigger than making those tackles. Man, we're training kids to be a part of something. We're teaching them how to work. We're teaching them how to grind, so they can grind for their families when their husbands and when their fathers, or whatever the case may be. But you have to have juice. You have to have energy. That's why I surround myself with coaches younger than me, because I'm like Robin when Batman and Robin. I got to get to my utility belt. Energy is fading fast as I get older.
Right.
The juice factor. So I have to manufacture my juice by getting younger coaches and getting them engaged in what we're doing. So that's how we help kids to not be so hesitant and allow them to have fun in the sport.
Right. And as it relates to cultural diversity, because I see this as a cross-country coach, I'm thinking maybe too, part of it is about the cultural gap, because it's seen as a Caucasian sport dominated by white girls or white guys, and just belief. I think Coach Lynn was touching on it a little bit in what he was saying. It made me think like, too, you got to believe in them, make them feel that you believe in them, even if you don't, even if they can't catch the cold, like he said, they're not extremely talented. You'd be surprised at what those kids will accomplish once you show them that you believe in them. Some of the kids that I've believed in, but knew that they weren't extremely talented, really surprised themselves and me, because they exceeded all expectations. And in cross country, it might be that last kid that has the points that you need to qualify as a team to move forward. That last kid makes a difference, just like on McFarland, the one that was chubby, he ended up being the one that came through when the top runner fell off. So, never sleep on them culturally or physical build wise. I had white girls who've done extremely well in the sprint. So I'm not that coach that'll separate it and say, oh, well, you have to be distance because you're white. You're going to be sprints because you're black. No, every kid gets an opportunity to show what they can do. And I encourage everybody, whether they're talented or not. Even some of the kids that are troublemakers, I'll recruit them to come on the team, because I know that gave me something to do after school. And I know that could have, like some people that I look at where they are now and they're not successful or their lives didn't turn out, favorably. I know that could have been me had it not been for sports. And so every time I have an opportunity to ask a kid to join the team, talent or not, I ask them to join because I see it as something that provides character development, even if it's not athletic development.
That's good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. If we don't have any more questions at this time, even if you watch the replay of this, go ahead and submit questions and I will share it with the other coaches, and we will still be able to respond to your comments or your questions after the broadcast is ended. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to them on Twitter. I will share their Twitter handles here as well and in the comments. And we thank you. And I think that this might, be something, a conversation that we continue. I know for myself, when Coach Lynn shared earlier about his son and, just understanding what kids are going through outside of, what you see on the outside. And that is a big part of my heart and my purpose at this time after losing my son. So with our foundation, the Damani Gibson Foundation, we also have just launched right before, ironically, it's crazy because like Coach Holmes and Coach Lynn said, they've been doing this before this. We launched the program before the pandemic happened and before the race riots started, but we have a social justice program to where we can come out and work with your teams to address issues of trauma, address issues of cultural misunderstandings. And I have a team of people who have been former NFL players. The grant is through the NFL Foundation. So we look forward to working with teams and making this not just a one-time conversation, but an opportunity that we can continue to help our kids and help the sports and the profession that I've learned to love throughout my life. So thank you. We have a few more comments just coming in, thanking us for the conversation. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And if you are interested in the Damani Gibson Foundation, coming out and working with your teams, please do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you so much for joining us, coaches. I really appreciate it, and continue to do great things with our kids. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.